I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. Dan Garza is an artist, a puppeteer, a voiceover actor, and an all-around creative individual. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show
Thanks
today.
for having me, Grant. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Now, you and I met through the Henson Diversity Workshop.
Yes.
And we will talk about that, but I want to go back. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Texas, San Antonio.
Okay.
San Antonio, Texas, yeah. And then spent summers in and out of Mexico. Then, when I was 19, 18, something like that, I moved. I moved to Mexico, lived there for 4.5 years. Met my wife. She wasn't my wife at the time. That was kind of a good note. But she then became my wife, and we went and did stage in Texas after having done VO and theater and television and radio and stuff like that together, the two of us. And then went to Texas, did stage there, got into animation in Arizona, and then came out here to California because I heard there was oil in them thar hills.
And there is some. But when you were growing up, what is the first sort of creative thing that inspired you?
Oh, geez. Okay, so rewind to like me in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
This has to be 19 something. And we get on a bus. We go to the Whitty Museum there in San Antonio. And all the kids get off the bus. They hadn't told us what it is. We get out. We go into the lobby. And I remember this clearest day. Take a left. And all of a sudden, all of the Sesame Street and some of the Muppet characters are in these giant glass cases. And it's weird, man, because they're tangible. They're real. They're no longer these little things that live in the TV, or they're not in the little golden books, or they're not in a lunchbox. They're sitting right there. They're standing right there. And it was at that point that I realized, oh my gosh, people do this for a living. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And then so you have a lot of that, and you carry that through the rest of your life, and you try to latch in somehow. And I get all the way to here. I had done some puppetry while I was writing and directing for kids, and I get here, and I come face to face with the puppets themselves, and it was crazy, man. Crazy emotional. The minute that I'm greeted by Steve as Kermit, all of a sudden those glass cases that I had since the 3rd grade shatter into like a million pieces, and now it's even more tangible. So yeah, I remember as a kid, because this is before the interwebs, before like mobile phones where you could record everything or watch anything you wanted. So my mom had gotten me this little tape recorder, and the Muppets would come on TV, and I would record it with my tape recorder, and I would listen, and I would listen, and I would listen, and I would play back these episodes in my room and in my head. And after a while, you're no longer just watching Kermit, but now you're like, hey everybody, this is Kermit the Frog here, blah 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 blah, or you turn into golden teeth and golden tones, welcome to my presence. You turn into Dr. Teeth as a kid, because you love these characters so much that you want to be with them all the time.
Yeah.
And so these little tape decks, these little tape recorders, they were my portal to access these friends at any point. And that for me was really huge. So me, coming out here and even having a little access or availability to the walk on the Henson lot is is huge, man, and it blows my damn mind. It really does.
Yeah. Now you mentioned stage.
Yeah.
Stage work.
Yeah.
When did you get your interest in performing on the stage?
In high school. In high school, because we were, my best friend and I would hang out and we would watch old black and white movies without the sound. And so people would walk into this movie, and we would make voices based on what the demeanor of the actor or the character. And so I'd done this for a while. Word gets out at school that I do these funny voices, and I keep telling people, it's not a parlor trick. I would tell my parents that they'd say, they'd have a dinner party or something like that, and like, oh, Danny, can you do that voice that you do? Like, I'm not a dancing monkey in the middle of this thing. But I would do it because, I love my folks. And so word gets out at school, and it turns out somebody had bad grades. They fell through. They can't perform in this play. And, hey, would you, you can do those character things. Can you come in and do that? And so I gave it a shot, and I stepped on the stage and found a group of people that were equally as insane as I was all the time. And so I found my place. You find what's the Muppets song? You find your place at the magic store, and that's what it felt like. Yeah. It felt like you were home. So I got that bug there. Yeah.
And it sounds like it, but your parents were supportive?
Yeah, they were very supportive, but they were also very pragmatic and practical. So make sure you have something to fall back on. Follow your dreams, pursue all of that stuff, but make sure that you're also going to be able to provide for your family.
Yeah.
And that's what plasma's for, kids. That's what plasma's for.
And when did your because you're an amazing artist. I have a piece of your artwork hanging here in the office.
Thank you.
When did that start? When did your drawing and interest in that begin?
I grew up in my grandparents' house, and this was back when paper was still made by hand.
Gathering the reeds yourself.
Absolutely, we would. This is back in Mesopotamia, we would get our Sunday funnies when the newspaper, and those were in color. It was the one day of the week that it was in color.
Right.
Because before the internet, there was this tangible thing made of paper. It was thin. People use it now to line bird cages, but back then we would actually read it. And so I would throw a sheet of paper on top of a loose leaf, and I would trace it. My mother would say, "Danny, you're never going to be able to draw if you keep tracing somebody else." And I said, "Well, how am I supposed to learn from anybody else? Nobody in this house knows how to draw. The guy that's in this newspaper does, and I want to see if I can do it." Mm-hmm. So I started, from a very early age, tracing, and then that turned into me sketching on my own and trying to make my own characters and all of that. So yeah, really, really, really knee high to a grasshopper, man.
Did you have a favorite comic strip character or comic strip that you loved?
Popeye. I loved Popeye. I loved Henry. I don't know if you remember the Henry comics, but those were in the newspaper. It was this little kid who looked like he was it was a little bald kid. He was a little bald kid who I apparently turned into. I admired so much. Apparently, both Popeye and Henry. So I'm gravitate to bald characters because it was prophetic in many ways.
And but you have continued to draw through all this time. You still draw.
Yeah.
And what sort of things inspire you to draw? What's your favorite? Do you have a certain Sounds
inspire me to draw. When I used to work for Disney, and so I'd go into work on a bus because we had one car. I'd give it to my wife so that way she can get the kids back and forth and all that. On the way in to work, I would listen and I would start sketching based off of stuff that I would hear. And then on the way home, I would break out my watercolor kit and I would watercolor on the way home. So one would be sketching, the other one would be finishing it up. And so, sounds. People on the bus make the strangest sounds, man. There was this one lady who was just hacking. She was like, and I'm just, everyone else is covering up their mouths, and I'm just please don't stop, please don't stop, please don't stop. As I scribbled away, I have to capture this on the page. And so I'm inspired by sounds. I'm inspired by shadows and things. When I was a kid, if I had a mental block, I would take a shirt or some sort of fabric, and I would drop it, and then I would walk around it and look for shapes in it, and then sketch those out.
Wow!
Just to be inspired. You can find it in things like wood. Wood has a lot of really hidden things that are in there that have been growing in there for years and years. So yeah, for me that's where I get inspiration.
Well, it's funny because you say sounds inspire you, and then your love from doing voices came out of the sounds that you recorded off of television.
Yeah.
And I know because we talked to this before we started recording that you like sort of old time radio, stuff like that. So you seem, it seems like that it's the imagination, the stuff, the pictures that you make in your mind capture you.
Yeah, very auditory in nature. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did some old time radio type stuff as well.
Yeah. We in San Antonio there was the anniversary of War of the Worlds at some point. That happens every year. The anniversary of War of the Worlds happens every year.
Wow, that's weird.
Little known
anniversaries are funny like that.
Yeah. When people are having a birthday, I refuse to call it a birthday. It's a birthiversary because if it's a birthday, then again, I'm pushed from my mother's loins every.
She got so
year.
Mad for the first
it was
10 years.
I was really trying. She's a really great woman, very strong. So I'm laughing at my own jokes. So she's fantastic. But So stage stuff. We did War of the Worlds, and so it was listening to old time voice actors and trying to find where the sounds are coming from. Are they super nasal kind of person? Are they more throaty? Are they is it coming from their chest? And trying to duplicate and replicate those sounds and still honor them, but honor myself as a performer, and still leave a little bit of me in there. So that's a lot of fun.
And you mentioned Henson, of course, the Henson characters, Sesame Street and Muppet Show, and you mentioned Popeye and Henry. Did you have other, growing up, other influences, like people you admired?
Oh, gosh, there's so many. I mean, Dr. Seuss was like a huge influence. Henson was gigantic. Walt Disney was again, it was like, the roles of Ted Danson, Tom Selleck, and Steve Guttenberg were replaced with Dr. Seuss, Jim Henson, and Walt Disney in my life, and they helped form and raise me. Three Men and a Fat Kid was the titular movie that was going on at the time. It was the story of my life.
Yeah.
So a lot of inspiration there, and guys who just wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to bring this up because you mentioned it, and I had forgotten that this was part of your past. But I got to talk. You're a trained luchador, which, for those that don't know, is a professional wrestler with a mask, but the sort of Mexican style of wrestling. How did you get into that?
So I only trained for about 6 months.
Okay.
Because I kind of fell into it. One of my things had always been working out, and I bumped into my best friend and I when I was living in Mexico. We bumped into a guy who was always working out at the gym, and he had all these scars on him. I was like, what the hell? What's this guy's got to have a million stories. Yeah. And it turns out he was a Mexican wrestler from back in the day. I don't know if you know much about Mexican wrestling. There's a character named El Santo.
Yes,
and
of course.
Santo is he's got the silver mask on, and he's like iconic. When you buy those little Mexican figures when you go down to Olvera Street, one of them is inevitably El Santo. And so he was in like movies with him, and all that, and he was this old school wrestler, and so he trained us. He was like, you guys want to go? Because we would go every Sunday, and every Sunday was awesome because you would go to these matches, right? And you would have these petite little old women, and I'm sure you run across these too. And they sit down and they have their little bag of pumpkin seeds, and they're eating them just frailly and fragilely before the game starts. And can I get you anything? Could I have maybe just a little bit of Coke? And so you bring them the Coke, and they're sitting there, and you're talking to them, and they're telling you about their grandchildren, and then the match starts. And they turn into these bloodthirsty savages.
Yeah.
Rip his head off and show it to his mother and send pictures. Wow, man, these people, there was this passion, this fire. So we'd go every Sunday to go watch these matches, and that was what we loved to do, and we wanted to be a part of that. And so Don Chucho, that was his name, Chucho Villa. He takes us under his wing, and he starts training us, and we start meeting guys. And turns out one of the guys that we met, he dies in the ring.
Yikes! He
has this concussion outside on the concrete of the ring. He passes out for a minute. He gets up again. He goes back into the ring. Guy he pops him down, and all of a sudden, he isn't getting up.
Yeah. And
so it freaked the hell out of me. and I went back to stage instead. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is a little too real. And it was very, very physical. And I was in great shape at the time. But yeah, the stage became my friend again.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so when you started, because you've worked for Disney, and you worked for Disney for a while,
worked for Disney. I worked for Nickelodeon.
Oh, that's right, Nickelodeon.
Yeah,
what did you do at Nickelodeon? Let's start.
I worked on Penguins of Madagascar and Fanboy and Chum Chum. We would create these assets for all the shows. So you need characters, assets, and sets, and they would go back and forth overseas, or we would create stuff in house. And I was bridging the gap between the artist overseas and the one that was giving the notes. And so it was a lot of that shipment back and forth. And then I moved on to Disney. I met a lot of just amazing people at both places. It's been fantastic. It really has. Yeah.
And then you applied for the Henson Diversity Program.
That was weird, man.
Where did you see that? Where did you have, first let me ask, did you have, I mean, obviously you like the Muppets, but were you like, I want to be a puppeteer, I want to do this?
Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a part of storytelling in whatever capacity I could be, whether it was illustrating them, whether it was voicing them, whether it was puppeteering, or all of those things. And things happen in life, and you start off bright-eyed and the sky's the limit, and you can do anything if you try, kid, and that kind of thing. And so I honestly and sincerely believed it until I tried, and then a lot of it just got put in a drawer. Life happens, and you become a husband, you become a father, you become all these things, and you become a provider. And so my wants and needs had to take a back seat. And I put that in a drawer, and I closed it up, and I said, I had some really good times, I learned a lot of really great things, and I met and worked with a lot of really amazing people. And so I decided, that was it. A friend of mine at Disney sent me a Facebook post that Henson had thrown up on the web regarding this diversity program. And I said, I'm okay. I'm all right. There's no sense in, I have enough salt in this wound. I'm okay. And so she didn't press anymore, this friend of mine, but the seed had been planted. And I started thinking, well, what if? So I borrowed a puppet, and I wrote this very meta thing. It was a puppet auditioning for a demo reel, and I got a friend of mine to help me shoot it, and we sent this thing in, and lo and behold, out of Lord knows how many hundreds of people that sent their stuff in, they called us back. They called 105 of us back for an audition, and that was crazy. If that had been the end of it, I would have been completely happy.
Yeah.
I get access to drive on to the Henson studio lot. It's a 2-hour or so audition process. I get pulled into the Charlie Chaplin soundstage, and in there is a table full of puppets. These giant mirrors. Donna Kimball and Drew Massey are in there, and these are people whose work I've seen in the past. Now teaching me, giving me a sort of a 1-hour puppeteering boot camp. Mm-hmm. And a handsome puppeteer does this, and a handsome puppeteer does that, and this is how we hold our puppets, and this is how they walk, and this is your eye focus, and blah blah blah, and having a great time. And we would do this round robin thing, and try the next character. And the whole time, man, I kid you not, I do a bunch of characters. You've agonized through a lot of my characters, and I had like 3 characters. That's all that I could remember because I was so petrified. I was, am I doing it right? Am I holding it right? Am I doing this right? And then these other people around me are doing these amazing jobs. I'm like, what? I'm in the wrong place. I'm obviously in the wrong place. And, both Don and Drew, to their credit, were just like, just loosen up. You're having a great time. Just enjoy it. And okay, I'll do that. And so, we finish up our 1-hour boot camp. We get pulled into the audition, and the door opens, and there is Brian Henson. My face completely falls off of my head, and he greets me with a smile and a handshake, and I come in and I start looking and I start scanning the room, and it's filled with people whose work I've admired forever, and I'm beside myself. And then Brian says, "Well, go ahead and throw on a puppet. We're going to go ahead and do some scenes together." Oh, great! Brian Henson's my scene partner. That's no big deal. Sure, yeah. No pressure at all. And he was very gracious and extremely funny, and also let me do my thing. And it went well enough that I got pulled into the program and got to meet 30 of the most astonishing people that I've ever had the pleasure of calling friends. We became this really tight-knit puppet family, and then we were trained by some of the best puppeteers in the world, and I thought, okay, that's cool. When we wrapped up, we were given this opportunity to create a demo reel. And it was 3 through the door. So you have 1 puppet, 3 different characters, and they're interacting with none other than Grant. And so I did some crazy bit about that California should be divided.
Yes, I remember this because it was one of my favorite parts of the whole class. You were let's set it up because it was like you were going into the Welcome to California place, and you came in as this one character. And go ahead.
Which character? I can't even remember. Was it a Texan? Was it a Texan?
It may be. I don't remember, but I just remember like I said something about like, oh well, they've talked about splitting California in half. Yeah, and then you.
Well, I think that it was probably something like this. I'm pretty sure it was this character. And I'm all for it. Your state's too big because, the great state of Texas, which is where I'm from originally, great state of Texas, we're having kind of state envy because we feel that with the obesity problem going on, California's getting larger and larger. So it should be divided in half. There should be a West California and an East California, as logic would dictate,
Right, you're going to divide it the long way.
We're going to
which to this day still cracks me up and I think is so funny.
One of my other and I'm pulling up my own jokes now, was the bit of the cholo who's leaving California because of what they were doing on Hollywood Boulevard, and he's scared out of his mind. He's like, dude, these people are crazy, man. They're crazy. You know, they bury people. They bury people like on Hollywood Boulevard, man. There was Charlie Chaplin. There was Godzilla. There was Lucille Ball. There was one for Betty White, man, and it had like a hinge on it because she's not dead yet, right? Right? No, she's not dead.
Yeah, no,
she's live. She's living.
I think those may just be stars on the Hollywood.
What I know they are. They're celebrities, man.
Right. Well, okay, all right.
Well, what I'm telling you is that I got to get the hell out of here, man, because first it's them, and then they're going to start burying us, dude. I don't know what the hell, okay? I'm gone.
Well, and let's just say we won't go too much into this, but here it is. You weren't going to go for this opportunity.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Right?
I wasn't.
You go for it. Not only do you get it, now, currently, you are working on a Henson production.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, how amazing is that?
It's yeah. There are a lot of amazing opportunities out there. I've been fortunate enough to fall into a few of these. My first day on the job for this new show, I went up to one of the executive producers and I just wanted to make sure. I asked if it was a clerical error, and if my face was in tune with the name that he had chosen. So, and they said yes. So I'm fortunately still there.
Well, great.
Yeah.
And okay, so you talked about your three dads.
Yeah.
Walt Disney, Dr. Seuss, and Jim Henson.
Right.
You've worked for Disney now.
Yes.
You've worked for Henson.
Yeah.
What is on your bucket list that you haven't done, and you would like to do someday?
I've got a shovel in the back of my car. Dr. Seuss is next.
Oh, okay. Well, easy. I want to shake his hand.
I want to give that man a hug.
Yeah.
And the difference between friends and real friends is real friends will help you with the body. So would you be my real friend?
Well,
come on,
I'm not going to go on record here, but once this is over, we'll talk.
That sounds great.
No, but is there something that, and maybe you didn't, maybe a year ago even, you didn't think like, oh, I want to puppeteer on a Henson project.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's not, so it may not be, but like, do you have something that's like?
Oh, I thought about it.
Yeah, right. But do you have something in your head that's like, oh, this is still, I want to do this?
I've always wanted to do children's books. I really have. I have a bunch that are again sitting in the drawer.
Yeah.
But we'll get to it. We'll get to it eventually. Yeah.
Do you draw every day? Do you make it a habit to draw every day?
Not so much anymore. I really should. I'll draw maybe once or twice a week now. Before, since I was going to work on the bus, it was every day.
Right.
So you're constantly sharpening those tools. But now it happens every once in a while. Molly, who you had on the show, asked me to do a poster for her, so I did a little Golden Book inspired poster for her show. That she's got a show coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, from time to time I'll do things, or somebody's birthday's coming up. I'll do a card for them. I just feel it's more personal, or like the piece that you have here. I felt that I needed to honor your efforts much in the same way that they should have been honored. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Well, Dan, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. If people want to find you online, is there a place that they can go to check out? I know you have an Instagram with some art on it.
Yeah. I have Instagram. It's OUTTAPEZ_art, Arapez_art. We're getting together the webpage and all that other jazz, so that should be up at some point. I don't know when that is. I just found out that there's an internet.
Yes.
and that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Dan Garza is a puppeteer, artist, and voiceover actor, and he was my guest on this episode of 15 Minutes With. To see more of Dan's work, visit his Instagram account, where his username is outapez_art. That's OUTTAPEZ_ART. 15 Minutes With on the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media and made possible in part by the Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone to www.patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Merle Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Steven Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Matthew Wayne Selznick, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Baciocco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wobschall, and Twitter user Buttsinggear, aka Wildcat. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to www.patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. That's www.patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media, all one word, and set up your donation today. Or you can tell a friend about the show, or leave the show a review on iTunes. If you have any feedback about the show, you can email me directly at grant@throwingtoasters.com or get in touch via Twitter, where my username is ToasterBoy. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be back in another week with another episode of 15 Minutes With. The GrantCast is copyright 2016 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer, all rights reserved. www.saturdaymorningmedia.com.